Okay, and I would like somebody to volunteer to be the acting chair so that you can ask for the motion and say that it passed.
Yeah. Anybody? Yeah, I'm happy to do anything.
All right, why don't I be the seconder and Ann will be the acting chair person?
Okay.
How about that?
It just gets kind of weird with everybody sitting around looking at, well, who's going to say second?
It's true.
We should just make it up. Oh,
Okay, Denise, please start recording. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, this board needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, but I ask you in advance for your patience. Audibility. First, because each member of this board is participating in this meeting from a separate location, it was verified that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear and audible at an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each member participating in this meeting to state your name, the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every other member can hear each other, hear every other member. Okay, Sally Lyons.
Mute.
Sally, you're muted.
Sally Lyons in Colchester.
Tammy Manarino.
I'm here at Mount Vernon.
Barbara Nafe.
Barbara Nafe is here in Reston.
And Stunts.
I'm here in Vienna.
And this is Elise Murray. I am also in Vienna. Okay, at this point, we'll pass the virtual gavel to the vice chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by the other members of this board. Tammy.
Sorry, I fell asleep on the job. I second the motion. I was like, why is no one seconding?
I was like, wait, is it me?
No. I second the motion. And I'm going to start the discussion. I don't like the word effectuate, but anyway, that's my only discussion.
Okay, well, that's Denise and the county attorney's problem. So, Ann, please call for the motion.
Oh my God. Yeah. What words do I say? I call a motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Okay, and declare that the motion passed.
Motion passed.
All right.
I do this in my other meetings. This is really different.
Neat. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that can tell us these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, whereas usual procedures which require the physical assembly of this board and the physical presence of the public cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated telephone line, and the public may access this meeting by calling 844-621-3956, get number 173-911-4074. It is so moved.
I second the motion.
Do I call the question yet? I'll do whatever she tells me to.
Call the question now.
Call the question now. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? abstentions. The motion carries, Elise.
Okay, just one more. Need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures. Finally, it is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda must address the state of emergency itself, are necessary for continuity of Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required and necessary to continue operation and the discharge of this court's lawful duties, purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is the need for completeness and accuracy in the inventory nominations. And I'd like Denise's staff to tell me how she feels on it, because she and her other planning staff will be going into these records and looking at them and trying to use them.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Elise?
I would like to know what your opinion is on the need for completeness and accuracy in inventory nominations.
Oh,
Because it is going to be the Heritage Resource Branch staff that is going to be using these documents sometime in the future, perhaps.
the more information that we have, the better we are able to defend a nomination or the historic nature of the property.
And that also would mean that we need to have the inventory nominations be factual and accurate.
Yes.
Okay.
It sort of implies that extraneous information, as long as it's correct, related extraneous, that's maybe different, might still be helpful. You know, stories surrounding the property, but not necessarily directly related to the inventory. I hadn't thought of it that way, giving you more ammunition for your argument, as opposed to a more narrowly drawn argument. I think that's where
Yeah, if you're thinking about them as a file, let's say that, you know, it's not just a nomination or a small summary sheet, but if you're thinking of them as a full record, we have records that have more information than what would be required for a nomination. And we also continually, as research is uncovered, we continually add to those files and add to the record. So the nomination is one sort of piece that has to have those boxes checked, but then there's a lot more information that goes into a larger record or a larger file for each property.
Okay, and I believe due to limitations on staff time, it's due to the committee to ensure to the best of our ability that it's actual, that it's true and factual.
Yeah, yes, I mean, staff relies, not just myself, but all of the DPD staff rely on the local historian's knowledge of the properties that come in for the inventory, because you all know. And I'm sorry, are you having trouble hearing me?
Sometimes it's just the quality of the sound that I'm getting is a little funny. So
Okay.
It's a little garbled. So sometimes if I focus the sound a little bit so it's not going over there.
I'm wondering if I put headphones on, if it might help.
Yeah, I did hear every word, but I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry for my body language.
No, actually, it's a good cue for me, because if I need to do something differently, I can adjust. I just need to grab headphones if that's what's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're much better now that I'm getting used to you.
I
Sorry.
turned up my volume just because, I guess I had it down earlier. So
How's everybody else doing? Are you
I'm
hearing?
good now.
It's fine.
Yeah, if it's bad on my part, I can do something.
I
I think we're good.
I think it's
Okay.
better. It was kind of marbly for a while.
Okay.
So I think it's important to for there to be sources on. I mean, that helps all of us, right? It helps us to verify the accuracy of it, but it also helps later on if somebody goes back and says, "Well, I have an additional question. Where did this come from?"
Right.
Yes. So we do rely on the information that is submitted. We continue to add to the file, but we do rely on the local historians, being the History Commission, for the veracity of the information that is presented.
And I think that if it's not voluminous or something that's really well known, then I think we should require that the nominator provide the documentation to us.
Yeah, if it's a plat or something like that. Yeah, that is.
Or if it's from the Civil War record, or one of those records that's really well known that a lot of people have copies of. They don't have to necessarily go copy the page, or they could give us the link if they found it online.
Exactly. So many things are digital anyway. I mean, I like footnote quality sources whenever possible, even to the point, people hate me for this, but to the point of retrieved on February 2nd, 2012, just because stuff does change. But I don't know that we need to be that sticklerish.
What do the rest of you think?
What's that?
I missed whatever that.
Guess the rest of you don't have an opinion.
No, I think the more the more genuine information, the better the record, and it meets the purpose that we're doing it for. Otherwise, I know in the old files, when I'd go and look at them, sometimes there was a single sheet, and that was all. These are early in the 70s files. So now they're much more, ever since Susan Hillman was there, it's much more thorough and certainly are helpful. So.
And the staff since then have maintained it carefully.
Absolutely.
I guess we're going to have to put this somewhere on our website so people know that we want physical copies of sources. I don't think we can be too fussy because not all of these people are probably
They aren't.
footnote oriented.
I mean, sometimes you just want to give somebody a big hug for even trying, and you want it. You want it on your register if you can just come to grips with the quality of the proposal. Yeah.
Okay, so the consensus is we want to ask nominators to provide their source material if it's reasonable, links are acceptable, and that we're going to have to look at our website to figure out where to put that information so the public knows that that is a expectation.
Do you want to offer a link to a reference on how to adequately reference sources? Because some people have no idea. I mean, I did a lot of editing for medical stuff, and a lot of people have absolutely no idea how to do resources.
Or pick a style guide. Yeah.
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 Well, and you don't want to chase away or frighten people that want to, they want to do this, but if it's too, it depends how we present it, because if it's too rigorous, they're just going to say it's not worth it. And that defeats our purpose, our ultimate purpose. So that's a fine line.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also feel that if the sources are good enough, you can figure out what it goes to. I mean, if you can't figure out why there's a piece of paper in your file and you can't find the fact you're looking for the file, So I think that maybe we shouldn't be real strict about the format, but we should maybe have a little sort of list of some of the basics in footnoting or endnoting or
We,
anthropology. What is it? Science style, anthropology style.
oh.
Science style, we always said.
We already give, I always, I'm not that familiar with exactly what we give them, but we give them research guidelines and then we give them instructions. We give them an example of a nomination form and an example of a district nomination form. So surely in there we can brush that up, because we give them some really helpful stuff. So if we're not asking for what we started to really realize we need, if we're not asking well for what we want, then we can fix that.
Because as everybody in this group knows, style is a major issue. What preferences do you all have? I personally am schooled in the Chicago Manual of Style class. I am in the Chicago Manual of Style school.
I'm in no school. I'm in the school of winging it, but I'm happy to take advice and yeah.
I'm of the school, if you can tell where it came from, I'm happy. Like, I don't care about the punctuation. It's just if you can, if it's clear where it came from.
Yeah. I just want to be sure of things like if they quote a newspaper that they tell you the date,
Oh my gosh, yes.
But some people don't, they have a piece lying around.
Look what we say now under sources. List all books, newspapers, interviews, websites, blah, blah, blah. If you're unsure how to document sources, there are many books and websites to consult about formatting. The Chicago Manual of Style is preferred.
Very good.
But then look, this is, Tammy, you must have written this in another life. However, it is most important the sources be documented in a way someone else could easily find the information.
Exactly. Come on, guys. That's fine.
That is my exactly.
General public, not if somebody is, used to that, that's fine. But you have, again, well-meaning people, they have a property they want to put on the list. We think it would be great to have it on the list. They do the best they can and we accept it.
I agree. And so I don't even know that I would say the thing about what was preferred. I would just say,
let us know
what I like about it is some people love to do it just right.
Well, then they can do it just right.
This gives them, but it gives them something to look at to make it just right.
It does.
But it doesn't shove it down anybody's throat.
No.
I always have to look
lesson.
Just right. I know it needs to be in there, but I don't know exactly the precise order and where the commas and the other punctuation marks are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care.
I think it's probably it's good to look at this afresh every so often because I forgot that was in there.
Yeah.
I kind of hoped it was in.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Is it sufficiently prominent? I'm not trying to look at it now. Could it be made more prominent?
Well, you know what it does? It's the instructions. And so I personally, and I think everyone on this call would print that out and start marking it up with highlighter before you did anything. It's just, it goes section by section. It's quite, legal owners of property. It gives you 2 paragraphs. Acknowledgement of property owners. It's dates of resource. It's 3 paragraphs. So it's just so the sources style is down under sources. That's where you'd look if you wanted to know.
Okay, well, I think that definitely gives us standing for us to ask for more things of the 2 nominators for the 3 nominations that we're going to talk about generally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that's a very reasonable thing to go back and ask for is, we need the sources here.
I love how we say some primary sources are preferred in research. Secondary sources are secondhand.
Oh,
If you were wondering.
oh, Lord.
Okay. Family cemeteries on the inventory. I don't think this, I should probably have put this first. I got confused by something Denise wrote in an email last spring about one of the nominations and thought that perhaps she was indicating that she thought there were enough protections on the inventory, on cemeteries because of all the other things that are in effect. And as she indicated at the last meeting, that's not the case. So I personally have no issues with putting family cemeteries on. Did y'all read my email?
Yes.
It was very good.
Thanks.
I didn't get it.
Well, you know, I hate to say this, but Jordan probably wouldn't have. And so that's why I decided to ask.
Talk about him. He's not on the call.
I know, I'm safe. I don't have to refer to the email.
No, we read it.
Okay, well, I think we can agree that family cemeteries belong on the inventory and that we're not going to be hit with a deluge.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I think they belong. And there, I was going to say, you might get a few coming in from the Mount Vernon area because we do have a few that, I just started to think about, some of our prominent ones are attached to historic properties. So, for instance, Mount Vernon and probably the Quaker Meeting House, those are, some important ones. And so, hopefully that is in the documentation, of the inventory, that it just says there's a cemetery in this location. But we have a couple that are not on this list. I mean, this was a really helpful list. We have a couple that are not on the list, and they really should be. They have some, pretty old burials in them. So, so it does spur me to think, we really should get those going.
Well, I hope that in your future free time, you will launch on some inventory nominations or recruit some people to work on them.
Yep. If we can just, save River Farm, save Wellington, and then I can have more time.
Yeah, I will ask Laura Arsenault for an update tomorrow at ARB.
Good.
Yeah, I talked to Dan Stork last night, and I'm going to actually be talking to him on Thursday too, more directly. And so that they're sort of at an impasse right now. And River Farm is now closed, by the way, closed to the public. There's a big sign out front, not to take us too far off course, but there's a sign out front that says, due to rising COVID cases.
Yeah. They've been open for the last 8 months, and now they've decided. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Friday was the last day that it was open. So it is now closed to the public.
I hear their opening bid is $28 million.
Yeah, they almost doubled what the estimate is.
Yeah. What a mess.
Yeah, real.
So, is the discussion on family cemeteries basically that because they're not really, is it the ordinariness of them, Elise, that makes, is it the way that, the National Trust treats them as very precise, with very precise rules, and we just are more accepting of most any old cemetery that comes our way without applying?
If it lasted this long, if it's still there,
Yeah.
and everybody has a story.
Yes.
I mean, even if it was just a middle-class family cemetery, it has relevance, and it's important to have that fabric in our history.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so often that middle-class history really, or lower-class history isn't written because everybody wears things out and everybody thinks it's already known. And then,
and let's not even discuss cremations, my least favorite thing in the world, because where's the record?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't you have names in a plaque?
Well, yeah, unless you scatter your ashes. Oh, let's not go there. That's just anathema.
My father was sprinkled in the garden at Holy Comforter Church.
There you go.
And then they redid the church, so they had to collect all the ashes that they'd sprinkled there and had to reinter them.
Oh,
They
no.
now have a columbarium. He died in 1986, so it's been a while. Things are a bit more organized now.
Mhm.
But, there's no record of him there, which it suits him. That's the way he was.
To get back to the subject, I think that they are important since this was such a big county and rural with farms, and people had family cemeteries on their farms. And so whenever we're able to identify them and have a record of them, I think is very important. And if we are looking at our African American History Initiative, down around, they're working around Richmond and out, they're working to identify Black cemeteries, slave cemeteries, all of that. So I think it behooves us to be open to that whenever we come upon them.
Yeah.
Brown Hill Road, if Mary were sitting here, she'd talk about some of these funny little places she's found that the scouts are cleaning with the cemetery group. And
Well, I certainly grew up going to every cemetery known to man within a 50-mile radius. I have spent my whole youth, now that I look at it, at one of the cemeteries we're doing today. In fact, I probably have architectural features from one of the houses. It's no longer there. And because, they just couldn't be more important. They're like, I'm with you. I was only asking for my part because I'm always so dismayed with the National Register guidelines for evaluating and registering cemeteries and burial places. But I suppose when you got a whole country to deal with, you can make really strict rules. We're just 1 million people in a county, so we get to say what we can.
I think the reason it was designed that way is because there are millions and millions and millions of cemeteries. So all of a sudden,
Yes.
if you're listing every single cemetery there, then it becomes a huge resource management issue. So,
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
So, that's why the criteria considerations were developed under that. So it's not just the 4 National Register criteria, but there were a bunch of criteria considerations.
One of the themes that kept coming up through the National Trust Conference was an effort for more inclusivity. And there was a lot of reference to inclusivity on the local level. So I think the Park Service has gotten a lot less picky than they were when I first got started, and all sorts of things in Fairfax. The late Liz David would be turning in her grave at the things that she couldn't get on that would get on now.
Right.
And it's not that the years have passed, it's just that the attitude has changed.
exactly.
Look at merry-go-round. We'd never let that on. And they just did that for Daddy, I decided. What a poor write-up that was.
I don't want to suggest that your father wrote it.
So that's the reasoning why it says family cemeteries on the inventory, because, for instance, there's a church cemetery on here, but the reason why we're talking about family cemeteries is because that hasn't been included up to this point. Is that?
Well, that was the question. I had no issues with the church cemeteries because I'm familiar with them, and most of them are still with churches. At least one of them, the church, Mount Pleasant Baptist. The church is gone, but the cemetery is still there and active. So it was just the family cemeteries because they're smaller and less well defined, and often less trace of them. That was why I got concerned.
Right.
But I'm no longer concerned.
Good.
Okay. Let's start with Willie C. Preston. And to be honest, I have it. I don't have it printed out. I have it open in a PDF file. So if I need to refer to it, if I start looking strange.
Me too. I don't print anything anymore.
There's a lot of Well, the recounting of his death and things like that just seemed to me that there's no way anybody could know things like that. I think that the basic research is there, but I think there's just a lot of flourishes that I'm not sure if they're true. I'm no longer looking at you. Paging down.
Oh yeah, like the little quote when they tell his dad.
Well, for example, in 1862, he was in the second paragraph under significance of significance. There's also he was 19, full of life, full of ideas of soldiering. He left his home. He was anxious to secure a position as General Jackson's staff. Have we determined that he really belonged to Jackson on his staff? He is from Lexington, so I think that the silliness about, and I don't think we need so much detail on the fact that he's related to Jackson via his stepmother, he's related by marriage or something silly. There's just a lot of stuff in there that you don't know that's true.
Her muscles were twitching convulsively. His eyes were all aglow.
Yeah,
that's at least.
And then the description of his death.
Oh, that's Stonewall Jackson's surgeon. So there's a place that he, at least for that, there's a.
Yeah, but the general's quote, the general's face was a study. The muscles were twitching convulsively. Yeah, the eyes all aglow. I'm sure that doesn't come from a primary source.
Well, let's see. It has a footnote on it, right?
Not on that paragraph.
So I wonder if Stonewall Jackson's surgeon, Hunter Holmes McGuire, had a diary.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what the footnote says is page 63, 64.
Yeah. So I mean, this is something our buddy, one of our buddies wrote this, so we can always.
Yeah, because it was by Hunter McGuire Shaw.
We can always grill
or Shaw Hunter McGuire. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure we need that level of detail.
The question is, even though we don't need it, what hurt does it do? What harm does it do to be there in the record? Because it sounds like some of it's oral history. But if the gravesite is worthy of being included, the fact that that's extraneous doesn't take away from the actual facts, and so I don't see there's a problem with having it there, because you're looking at the resource or asset, whatever you want to call it, and that's a given. And this is it's not hurting anything. It's not a scholarly piece. It's a piece for a historic site inventory, which is important, but it's. So anyway, that's my thought.
Well, what do we want to ask him to give us to prove it? I mean, the book with any footnotes that it would show?
That's a good idea. That's a possibility.
Yeah, the copies of the pages so that we could see whether it's a reputable.
Yeah. Maybe we should just know. It's times like this that I look at these Bull Run Civil War Roundtable people and think they know so much more about certain things than I ever will. I think, you know, it might be that it's very well known. Quick, let's Google it.
I know. Do we have a copy in the Virginia room?
Of course, I bet we do. It's okay. Stonewall Jackson surgeon.
Can you get it on
Well,
Amazon?
let's have a look. I should go look. We've probably sold 1 million copies at the Virginia.
I'm the one here with one screen, so I'm quiet, less waiting.
I'm looking at the library catalog.
You know what's interesting is the book is not in his list of sources.
Ooh, good noticing.
Hmm.
Oh, there it is. I found it.
Okay. So
Morris F. Shaw. Lynchburg, H.E. Howard, 1993.
Hmm. Let's see. Yeah, it's a Virginia room reference book. 1 copy.
Okay, well, should we schlep over to Virginia room or should we ask him to give us some copies? Copy of the page and any relevant footnotes?
Let's see. I just got a text from somebody. Hi, Tammy. Could you ask Denise to let me in the meeting?
Must be Cheryl.
Is that Cheryl? Yeah, must be. Here we go.
well, that would be neat to look through and know. I mean, yes, because it is very, very florid, colorful language. And but it doesn't, I'm with Barbara in that it doesn't offend me as long as it's defensible, you know?
Okay, well, I will not ask for all the extraneous stuff to be removed. I just would like to ask that we be able to determine that the extraneous stuff is truthful.
Did you see it's Blake Myers who prepared these two?
Yeah, I don't know him. I'm guessing he's a Civil War person.
Yeah, you know where you would have laid eyes on him is if you he's come to several of our meetings, and one that I remember is when he was talking about the 2 obelisks in storage for the Ox Hill, because he heads up their what they call the preservation part of the Roundtable, and so that's kind of one of his things. But I bet you, my guess is that he would happily chit chat about details of this. You know, anything's more interesting than some of what we've been discussing with him over the last 6 months.
He's also attended the history conference before, too.
Yes, yes. And he's apparently the guy who wrote that. He's the point man for responding to the Board of Supervisors regarding the Confederate inventory. You know, he's like all. You know, so he's the one who drafted that suggested letter that Johnson was sending around, and but he testified at the public hearing. He's just but he's just one of that community and very engaged and interested, as I have gleaned from knowing him a little.
Well, then maybe perhaps each of us should look at it and put together a list of questions that you'd like to see more sources on, and I guess get it back to me. What's a reasonable time frame? Because my life is very different from all of yours. Some of you I know are ready to go into a slump.
As long as we do it before Christmas. Or well after.
Would 3 weeks be long enough?
I think so.
Oh, I think that's fine.
It's okay by me.
My only objection to that would be because the Civil War names document is going to the Board of Supervisors. I wouldn't want to see it put too much pressure on Denise or Barbara.
Well, I would be taking the questions and consolidating them into a list. It would be one of those reply only to the chairman of the committee matters. And I will take what you ask, compile it into a list, and then run it back by you before we pass it on.
And that way, we're just a bunch of fellow researchers. We're not bothering Denise and Barbara too much. And we're just a bunch of fellow researchers, not nitpicking, but, with valid questions and interests. I think it's a good plan. That's a good kind of follow-up.
And it may be as simple as just for him to elaborate a bit more on what some of the things he's referring to are. Especially, there's a lot of Civil War lunatics out there, and they publish things. And it's hard to tell whether something's responsible or not.
Well, yeah, and what did this person who wrote the surgeon book, was that from primary sources or from secondary sources?
Yeah.
Denise, do you see Cheryl on there anywhere? She's trying to get in.
Oh, wait, she just showed up. Just this minute.
Oh, really? Well, she might be coming in by phone. She said she would try something.
We're good.
Oh, here we go. Yay!
I sent her the link again. She didn't show up when you told me. So I went and sent her the link again, and
yeah. Oh, I'm glad it worked out. Yeah, it sounded like it was just giving her a hard time.
Thank you for letting me know.
Oh, sure.
Cheryl, are you there?
He's muted.
She's muted, yes. Unmute. How do you tell her? Unmute.
Oh, it's hard when she can't see us.
I know.
No.
And she probably can't hear us since.
You can't use sign language.
So Tammy is our. Tammy, wait, I got my phone.
Now she's not muted.
Yeah.
Now she's on. Cheryl, are you there? It doesn't say mute on hers.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Weird.
I unmuted her.
Okay. Talk, Cheryl.
This is so funny.
Still having difficulties.
Ugh.
Let me send her the telephone number and see if that will help.
Yeah.
Well, I was on a meeting this afternoon that Sally was also on, and I could never be heard.
Oh,
Oh.
that's
you
so
had right in.
frustrating.
Frustrating. Here, I'll text her.
So I just ended up using the chat.
Of course, that's illegal for us. So, so while we're trying to get her back, with respect to the William C. Preston Grave, we now get to read it and jot down anything that we might have just read over and said, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to be totally anal about it, but we do want to make sure that it's not all totally made up, because I have a feeling that some of that stuff is made up.
You know what? I think a good piece of homework, if we can find a way to prevail upon Chris. Yeah. Well, oh, maybe I could do this. How long can you stay at the library? 30 minutes now?
30 minutes. But I have to confess, I was able to stay a little bit longer. Like there was no one else in there, and I was able to stay a little bit longer than that when I went
I
in.
was thinking about how I haven't done the mail in a while, And given that, and even though Laura and everybody was thinking up really good ideas, if there's a backlog of 24 letters, then I'm not going to give that to Sue, our brand new person, to deal with, because it's just not nice. And because, just because I'm behind shouldn't mean that she has to jump through a million hoops. So maybe I should go and grab the envelopes and quick look at the Stonewall Jackson Surgeon Hunter Holmes McGuire book.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
and
we
if I
have
don't
Cheryl
have,
now. Cheryl's showing up on my screen with a headphone and a mute symbol.
at all.
Let's see. If she's here.
I've actually been listening in on my phone. I was driving home and I, called in on the phone, but it wouldn't let me talk to anybody.
Oh, that's funny.
Annoying.
So do you have anything to add on anything that we've covered so far, or are you?
Well, it's been a bit spotty back and forth, but I gather we are agreeing to admit family cemeteries as possible inventory candidates. And we are now presently discussing, are we William Preston?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which also kind of goes, and we also had decided that completeness and accuracy are necessary in inventory nominations.
Yes, that sounds reasonable.
And that there's already sufficient information on the website that nominators should know that.
Yes.
And basically, we've decided that we're going to look at William C. Preston and put together a list of questions in the next 3 weeks or so. Send it to me, and I will consolidate it into one list, because in case we all have the same question.
Okay.
And then we can get back to him, and maybe the person who knows him best can talk to him or something like that. I don't think Denise necessarily has to do the talking unless she wants to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a meeting or anything. It can just be a conversation.
So Liz and I had 2 meetings with Mr. Meyer before this is the 3rd iteration of this nomination. So we had, 2 meetings before this. So it probably, and that's why I decided to just move it forward and see how the committee felt.
Were you getting improvements in between times?
Yes. Each time there was an improvement. Yes.
Okay. So now it really is just how far do we keep going?
Okay. I think we're resolved on that. Now the question is, how much geography, what area should the William C. Preston Grave site inventory listing include? He's asked for just a 4x8 rectangle. As you saw from the Waters grave site, it includes Waters' head, non-contemporaneous monument, and also the rest of the stoneless cemetery. Liz indicated that there's immense Civil War. Liz, I believe, added the sentence that I quote, and that there's a lot of potential for Civil War archaeology. So I'm inclined to make it bigger than just the 4x8 rectangle, unless staff has a better opinion that they think it's safe enough. I feel that I could see a developer coming in and saying, "Oh no, all I have to do is the 4x8 rectangle." I mean, would state law make them do more? Liz?
I think it would depend, but one thing that I was particularly concerned about was, might there be other burials?
Yes.
Right.
There. So I think it would be in the best interest of the nomination, and it might be something, sort of, under the thing of attracting more bees with honey than with vinegar. We might approach it from, we'd like to expand this a bit to make sure that if there were other burials there, that they would get, that they would be considered. And oh, by the way, while you're doing that, can you do this type of thing?
I think there were more because of the story of identifying him by his shirt. There must be have been a whole row of them. I think from an email Mary sent me, I get the impression that there are larger plans, and I think that would probably suit Mr. Myers and the forces of cemetery preservation.
Well, and Joanna Wilson Green from VDHR did come up and look at it, I want to say about a year ago.
And
No, I mean, they were just concerned, just concerned about it.
Yes.
so they agree with you that it could
Yes, they agree with me.
We just have to figure out what the boundaries are going to be. With the VDHR persons, how are we going to figure out the boundaries? That seems like an archaeology project, and I don't know that you have the staff that we can.
I mean, we would not be able to go out there and do any kind of a study. But again, I would need to go back and look at a map. But sometimes we'll just say something within a property boundary, should there be any ground disturbance within this parcel, we would make a certain recommendation. But of course, right now, I don't know if that would be considered appropriate for this.
What's the background on this? Is this this was submitted by the developer of this property?
No, it was submitted by Blake Myers.
No, he filled it out.
Oh, the developer wanted the nomination?
There's somebody else involved.
Yeah, there's a developer who owns it and is developing 5-acre parcels,
Yeah, so
5-acre custom homes. I found it on the web.
Yeah.
my question is from a planning and development point of view, is there already a whole plan for this property? And is there a profit situation where we could get them to do a archaeological survey, or is there any other hope here because we're talking inventory, so that's like that hat on, but we also care about next steps.
This is a by right development, I think, Anne. I mean, Denise can correct me, because
Yeah.
some years ago, I was out there with some other folks, with Margot Khosravi and from Clifton, and some other people, because we were very concerned about these sites and about the, this is right where the ford is for the crossing. There's also remnants of the Manassas Gap Railroad there. So the entire site, the whole Sudley area is of real interest and real historic value. And it's, we didn't get a lot of, we were trying to, we approached Manassas, and we talked to some other people I mean, it was sort of just putting out feelers, and no one was particularly excited about stepping up to really do much to preserve or, protect it. But I think it is a by right development with those 5-acre plots. That's the standard zoning for that.
That's what I thought. Given the large lots, presumably they should be able to avoid things.
Yeah.
Do they have to have some sort of development plan, Denise?
Like a site plan?
Yeah.
I mean, it is by right. They do have to submit some sort of site plan when they go to actually develop the lot. I was just looking at a map right now, and it doesn't look like this lot is developed yet.
And I believe it's not.
Yeah, there's no structure on it right now.
They should have some sort of subdivision plan, right, Denise?
Yes. Well, there is a subdivision plan. I think that these lots are being developed individually, though, I think.
Oh, okay. So they know.
Yeah, I saw their website, and they call them, I think, custom homes, 5-acre lots, and I think they had a picture of a home, but I'm not sure whether they're planning on building the houses themselves or not.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like they're doing it by individual home, Not like one developer that's developed, well, the one developer may be developing it all, but he's not developing it in one
Building.
fell swoop. Right, build, thank you, yeah. But they would have to have a site plan when they come in, that will have to be reviewed. And I believe archaeology reviews on the site plan level. We typically don't see site plans. If they're on the inventory, though, often we will be looped in if there isn't an inventory site.
Well, we would likely see it at the site plan level.
Okay, so we want a reasonable. Would you see what, Liz, would you see what your staff can see from the resources you have on hand?
Sorry, Elise, that was a little bit garbled, so could you repeat?
Would you please see what your staff can see on your basic maps and levels and things like that? And if there's anything in Beatrice that would be useful to us, or
Sure, I can touch base with them in the morning.
Okay, there's no huge rush. You know, it's sort of within that same 3 weeks to month period.
Mm-hmm.
But
So you guys,
think,
the law theoretically protects all these cemeteries.
Yes.
That
Virginia Antiquities Act.
Yeah, the one that's that you guys worked on in recent years and made better. And so these guys are not offering this necessarily out of the goodness of their hearts, but because A, it's the right thing to do. These are graves, for goodness sakes, and B, it is the law. If it's too well known, they can't get away with burying the. And so that the Carter Tolliver one is 100 by 50 feet, I think. But then we got this tiny one.
Yeah, I think the Carter. The difference is one is defined by a wall that's fallen down, and the other is men who died before their prime after battle who were buried near the field hospital.
I got you. They're very different. One old family and one more hit or miss.
I will check in with Mary to see what her forces know about the situation on the ground.
That's a
Mary's
good
enough
idea.
there. I think, in fact, Mary helped because when we went out, the Tolliver Carter Cemetery was pretty well overgrown, and I think Mary's group's been out there to kind of clean it up a little bit.
Well, when I was out there, it was really overgrown.
And I was there a long time ago, so I shouldn't really talk about what the condition is. The Preston Grave was, if I remember correctly, is near the house.
Well, yeah, this says 100 feet. This says reportedly 100 feet due south of where historic Sudley Mansion once stood.
Oh, and so that's been demolished. I thought there was a building on the site.
The clubhouse or whatever they call it for the golf course.
Oh, okay.
The house was demolished sometime after 1937. Oh, dismantled after 1937. So probably around when they opened the golf course, developed the golf course.
So it could archaeologically be interesting if the mansion was that close, and I don't know if it's been done before, but.
Well, the problem with this is that we don't have the resources to do this unless the developer wants it or is funding it.
Right.
Or the board of supervisors decide they gotta have it. Liz and her staff are just not big enough, and I don't think the volunteer program is.
Well, right now the volunteer program is suspended until we're post-COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, for the time being, I mean, for one thing, unless there was, I mean, there are multifacets. One is how you would, unless it was being funded by somebody, how you would pay staff to be out there. But also, we would need permission to, be on the property and a lot of other things. And there would have to be, again, I mean, it's like the onion. There are a lot of, different layers.
much as I would love to have a complete excavation on both the mansion site and around the edges of the cemetery, because as I was long ago taught, archaeological resources are not renewable, so you don't excavate unless you need to, have to because for some reason you're doing salvage archaeology. Okay, so Liz will look. I will talk to Mary. I know Mary has been out there. I think I think in her email she said somebody's been doing cleanup. I don't recall precisely. So, okay, the Tolliver family cemetery. Believe it or not, Tammy, Taliaferro is pronounced Tolliver.
I was wondering about that. You guys kept saying Tolliver, and I was like, isn't it Taliaferro?
Yes.
No, it's one of those Air Virginia things.
That's very strange. That's like Buena Vista, Virginia. Have you ever heard of Buena Vista, Virginia?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Anyway.
Well, there's also Stanton, which is spelled Staunton.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Go
So
figure.
it's just one of those quirks.
That's Tolliver. That's hilarious. Okay.
Isn't that hilarious?
Tolliver spelled with the V as well, because as people say it and spelled it the way they said it, they changed the spelling. You see the name spelled both ways.
And what's the O doing on the end?
Well, it's an Italian name, and they migrated to England and then migrated here.
Yeah.
And high school, I had twin boys that were high school classmates of mine that were Taliaferro, and that's how you said it, with the O and everything.
Yeah.
So that's how I read this.
Well, and isn't that Booker T. Washington? Isn't that what the T is for in Booker T. Washington?
For Taliaferro? Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought so, but
It's a good Virginia name. It's on a building at UVA. That's where I first encountered it and learned how to pronounce it.
It is Taliaferro, Booker Taliaferro, Washington.
Yeah. I was going to say I read one of his books last year, and I was like, okay, cool. But anyway, that's so funny.
He's my cousin.
Really?
For real? For real?
He could be. I mean,
You have cousins all over the state.
I got Tollivers.
Yeah.
So
All right. He might have just selected that name. I'm not really sure.
yeah, I don't know.
Given his background, I suspect he selected it, or it was given to him. Let's go on to the Carter Tolliver family cemetery. I believe Brian calls it the Tolliver Carter, and I have a feeling if that's what the rest of the county is calling it already, that's what we should call it.
I agree with that.
So, Liz, would you check with John Rutherford to see what he's calling it?
Will do.
So I did check the records, and you are right. It's Tolliver is first rather than Carter.
Which is silly because there's only 2 Tollivers there. On Find a Grave, it's the Carter family cemetery. And I will give you all a bit of trivia. The person who maintains a lot of that cemetery on Find a Grave is one of the owners of the house Leeton.
Oh.
And she's related to, well, she's moved back into the area later in life. I think her family was away and she's moved here and discovered she's related to people and bought a house that is historic and connected. Okay, he doesn't have any sources for his significance in history section or for his historic photos. And I'm absolutely convinced that the Tollivers didn't actually live there. I believe that they lived at Mount Sharon in Orange County, and that for some reason Dr. Tolliver died there. I noticed tonight, I have, if you want to look on Ancestry, I have a Carters of Sudley and Mountain View family tree, because I decided to go looking around to see what I could find. So I would like him to provide his sources so he can prove to us that the Tollivers did live there. I suspect they're visiting because his mother-in-law died in the same month.
Ah. There you go. Got sick and yeah.
So what about Louisa?
Louisa was the mother-in-law, right?
So let's see, wife of Dr. Benjamin. Oh, Dr. Benjamin of Mount Sharon, Orange County.
Yeah, that's what it says. In fact, that's what it says on the newspaper headline for the obit that he references. Which, that's all I can see of it. But it says he died at Mountain View on the Stone, so.
Yeah, it says he dies at Mountain View of the Stone, but he apparently must have taken his daughter with his wife with him. I don't know.
His wife lived way late, longer, like 1878 or something.
Yeah, she dies in 76, and he dies in 55.
Right, and I think
maybe they, just because she wanted to be buried next to him, she's buried.
yeah, that's my theory. I think that at that point, I know that one of her sons died in the Civil War, and I can't find any traces of her other sons. I have a feeling he died too. I can't find a good confirmation of it. So anyway, I would like, as we discussed before, that is going to be on my questions list for him. And the rest of it's basically all stuff that's questioned. I really want to know what the source for the Mountain View photograph is. I'm inclined to believe that the Sudley's picture really is of Sudley. He says that he's using a HABS form, but I think it's really a WPA survey form. And if there is a HABS form, I'd love to see it. So I have just a bunch of little questions, but I'm convinced that the Tollivers didn't live there because I know from the 1850 census other people did. And I know that the Tollivers were in Orange. In fact, it was William Carter's widow and 3 of their children. One of them was Cassius. And 2 daughters, 1 young, 1 widowed, and their 3 children. In 1853, both the daughters married and moved away. And then people started dying. So in 1860, it belongs to the, it's on the map as Cassius Carter Estate or something like that. So. Okay, so I think we're resolved on that one. This is also, write your questions. I'll combine them, send them off. Oakshead Farm. I think it belongs on the inventory, but they need to give us something to prove the date. Taxes would probably get us the ones in the 1800s. But I'm really suspicious of anything in the 1700s.
Yep.
I believe that Squirrel Hill really is what it is because Susan Hellman looked at it.
Yes.
But these people, they did a wonderful plan, valiant effort. But, just because you were supposed to build something there doesn't mean it was, and it doesn't mean it lasted. These were flimsy wood structures. So does anybody have any suggestions? I guess we could just first ask them what they're willing to do.
Well, oh, sorry, Denise.
Oh, I just wanted to interject that at least we had a conversation about this, and I did reach out to Susan Hellman. I sent her the inventory nomination, and she is willing to go out there and take a look at the property.
I'd be happy to join her on that.
That'd be great.
Well, that would be perfect. If she looked at that, then I would like to have the tax records, but we don't need it. If Susan's willing, will you contact her or should I?
Oh, I've already talked to her.
Okay, so she's willing to go out and look.
Yep.
I'd be willing to tag along on that. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, because it looks like it looks interesting.
Under normal circumstances, I have not talked to the property owner yet, and I can certainly see how many people they feel comfortable with.
I wasn't thinking.
Yeah, with COVID and everything, I just don't know how many people we should impose on them.
That's a good point. I wasn't thinking of that.
Yeah, I mean, under normal circumstances, I would say, let's all go. You know, he has invited us. He actually made the invitation, extended the invitation. But I will test their comfort level. But you know, I just want to be cautious about that.
Yeah, that's very reasonable.
We really have to, if they get on the inventory, we have to make sure Susan has to become their best friend and has to tell them how great we all are.
Yeah.
So that, you know, so we can go there in the future when everybody's okay with it. Because we're dying to see it.
I believe it's some sort of semi-private, or it's some sort of riding stable establishment.
Yeah.
So it may be a going concern.
So
Denise, how much do you do in the step between the inventory nomination and getting it onto the inventory report? How much do you do in terms of making the descriptions and the photograph professional?
So the inventory nominations that we have had submitted have come in complete enough that I have been able to just use what has been submitted. For this property, though, I think there's going to need to be some support there.
Okay, and you're willing to go?
Yeah, my comments were actually about the description of because it is coming in under architecture. There is some significance in county history, but I would say that it's definitely it's the architecture. So I do need a good description of the property and some good photos.
Yeah, and that's clearly not in their wheelhouse.
No,
Once again, it was
understandable, but
it was a great effort by someone who hasn't been living with academic research and historic preservation for a long time.
You know, do you remember back when the people at Kenmore over on the way from here to off of Beulah,
Betty Busey.
Betty Busey hired Susan Hellman to write the history of their house, and it was fabulous.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
And God, if we could just make everybody hire somebody like that. Oh.
And Susan have time to do that.
Yeah, which.
Well, even the property that we considered in September, Briarwood, was done, you know, to a level where there was just really we didn't have to discuss it much because we had all the information.
They did a good job.
Yeah,
it
was dovetail.
That was turnkey.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, and once again on this one, write your questions. I think that a lot of Civil War action actually took place off what's currently the property, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. It just needs to be caveated that it happened down to the south at the railroad tracks or the creek, and it's not their land anymore. It's not part of their parcel.
Right.
Okay.
So I sent you the picture. So you can compare the map in the book. Basically where the map jogs.
I mean, I always want, Denise knows this, I always want everybody to give me a floor plan with, you know, the oldest part in one color and the 1830 supposed part in another color. I mean, I get so tired of trying to figure out what they're talking about. But I think that's above what people would be able to do.
Right. That's right.
You know, but frankly, I wouldn't mind even a hand-drawn one for that what was it? Bois doré. That was my worst because I just was following their description down the hallways and through the doors. I had no idea where I was. And even a hand-drawn would be nice, but people don't see the value of it generally.
Basically, there's a line that's kind of parallel to the railroad tracks under the F, where the F support are. Their parcel goes along that line, past the pond, and then up to the road. So, but yeah, I would just like a little caveat, and we can ask. And we can leave the speculative to people having dinner there. I think looking at the map, you can see that there were other houses that they could have been going to. But since they just, since they caveat it, it's,
Yes.
it's possible, not totally improbable.
Our challenge continues to be that we we need to engage citizens to do this. And we don't have staff sufficient to be able to help them or guide them. So you have to admire anybody that even takes it on.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 in 10 is going to have the wherewithal to either have the expertise or know that they have to get somebody that has the expertise in order to do it.
Yeah, and so I think we're pretty much finished. You guys have convinced me that the stuff I consider fluff should stay. It just needs to be true fluff.
Well, I'm still, I imagine we all still hate the relentless word of mouth, oral history, owner to owner that was in this this particular write-up.
The folks that, yeah.
It's just this last one. It is.
Yeah, I just think that they didn't know when they went to the courthouse. Nobody said, "Let's look at the tax record."
Yes. So that will be a huge help. Susan's analysis will be a huge help. And, I guess we can't pick at how they wrote it, but I just want them to say, on what date did you have this conversation with the previous owner? And where are your contemporaneous notes? But I suspect that these are just stories they've been telling each other since 1982.
Right.
Oh, remember what old Mrs. So-and-so told us when we first walked over it?
Yeah, and you look at the Cartersville Baptist Church. They have a cornerstone that's improbably early because there's no way on earth they built their church in 1863 or whatever it says, because there wasn't a railroad for the minister to come out from Alexandria on.
Yeah.
So somehow in the 50 years since that happened, they forgot when their church was founded. That's a marker that's always been one that aggravated me. But Jack did say as early as.
I came up with a phrase I used more than once, which was called the tradition of place.
Yeah.
And put Mosby's Rock in that tradition of place.
Yes.
Even though it has all these markers, to me, that's a tradition of place.
John Rutherford told me that there are many Mosby's Rocks in Fairfax.
Well, I'm sure there are. It's like Washington's bed and Mosby's Rocks.
In my book, it's a whole lot like the Oakton oak tree.
Oh, there's that too, right. Yeah. Who was it that was supposed to be hiding behind the oak tree?
It had to be Mosby.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember I was told a long time ago that big old tree there. Somebody was either shooting or being shot at behind that big tree.
Come on, I'll lay a bet that it was.
Isn't this the one that we just did for the markers? We just reviewed a submission for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did Mary go ahead with that?
If somebody wasn't shot, it was like he was really relieved Mosby rode by him and didn't shoot him.
Oh, okay, that's good. Well, there's something to do with all that.
That's a good marker meeting, Cheryl. There's no way that oak was standing when that happened.
Now, girl.
We have oaks in Oakton that are now gone. The one that we were talking about was one that was at the intersection of 123 and Hunter Mill Road.
That's the one I'm talking about, Elise.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
When the school was the Appalachian store, that's how long ago, and that was when it was there.
I can't believe she's accepting that one. But I went on one of his tours and he pointed out a tree. It's down the way. It's one of the last ones that's there. But it was, who knows if it was when that thing happened.
Here's the thing. I got an earful of this on Thursday from Jim Lewis. And He's so passionate about it, Elise.
That's who he is Jim Lewis.
I know it's who you're talking about. And he does enjoy research. So he no doubt has all sorts of evidence that he's pointing to. So, it might even be plausible.
I suspect that tree he's looking at isn't the proper tree. I think it may have happened. It may have happened. I think basically the story is that a Quaker went to enlist, and Mosby's Raiders pretended to be Union. But he went to enlist in the Union Army, and Mosby's Raiders pretended to be Federals and captured him.
Oh dear.
And I can, there's a lot of people telling that story's been around, but it's one of those ones you can't put it on a specific tree. It did happen. And if it happened in that general vicinity, but.
Listen,
there wasn't any kind of sources provided in the marker. There was no reference to a memoir or anything that supported the story either. So I don't know. Maybe there is, and you just assumed everybody knew it, and you didn't have to support it.
What are we? Oh, that's the tree.
That's the tree. Yeah, one of my doctors has their offices in that building behind it, and I don't even know do you think it's 150 years old?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's got an X on it. If Brian Trumpeter wrote about it, it must be true.
Right.
You saw the big tree that's next to my house. It's absolutely huge. It's much larger than that. And it was planted in 1967.
Oh, that's a good point.
Which is wow, but it's a beautiful, beautiful red oak. And it is huge, huge, huge. The whole canopy's huge, huge, huge. And that's how old it is. And so if it was planted then give it maybe 3 years more. So that makes it about 55 years old.
Oh, it was Alexander Haight.
It was a Haight.
Oh, it's our buddy Haight from Sully. Okay, right. That's right. Well, anyway,
a prominent Quaker family. I had forgotten the Haights.
Forgotten too, but you're right. That's right.
So this is where tradition of place wins.
Well, I still don't think the commission should be funding a marker for Jim Lewis's tree.
Oh, come on. We're taking so much away. We might as well give him this one last gasp.
What kind of oak is it?
What?
What kind of oak is it?
Let's see if I know my Brian Trump. It looks like a white oak to me, but I couldn't. Let me look.
Because they grow slowly. We have a white oak behind my mom's house that's 600 years old, certified.
Oh my goodness.
The white
neighbor's
very
house.
slow.
White oak's very old, yeah.
Okay, well, the one I have is not. One I have is a red oak. Okay.
No, the county arborist has an inventory. Mary should insist that, or maybe I will insist that Jim prove his tree be old enough, because I am allegedly on the marker committee.
Well, that's a good point. They, these very, very good arborists who know historic trees, they know what they're doing. I'd be tempted to call up Dean Norton at Mount Vernon if he's still there, if I cared.
But we have county arborists as well.
But come on, just urban arborists. They are so different from historic. You know what? They're the kind of people that could go through a whole first growth forest on behalf of the county of Fairfax and go, nope, nothing made to save here. Let's just build a bunch of houses.
You really know that? I'm going to defend staff. Do you really know that about every arborist in the county, Ann?
I know it about the one bad experience I had, which I will tell you excruciating detail someday.
One of them, during a riff, one of them came to work for me, and so he knew his stuff.
They know their stuff, but their paycheck is paid by a board of supervisors that doesn't care very much. That's
There is a tree commission to help them out.
There is.
I was
and there is an inventory of historic trees.
I had the opportunity to speak for 20 minutes to the Hunter Mill representative on Valentine's Day this year.
Oh, good.
So I know so much about it. But I do think that generally speaking, arborists in Fairfax County do not, they err on the side of getting rid of stuff. I mean, we're losing a couple of 300-year-old oaks on Courthouse Road in Vienna, and these, you cannot find an arborist to say anything good about them, and they're gorgeous. It's really awful, but I don't know. That's why I've been thinking about Dean Norton lately. Because if you could save him, he'd be the one who'd figure it out. But even he'll throw in the towel. He knows. You can't make a tree safe that's not safe. And on a public highway like that. Anyway, that's a good conversation about tradition of place. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
So do you want to set a date for another meeting, or does it just seem like impossible?
Well, may I jump in and ask a question? Besides for contacting Susan Hellman for the Pope's Head Farm, was there any other follow-up for that, for Pope's Head Farm?
At this point, no.
Okay. Thanks.
But Elise said the same thing that she said for the other two, which is read it again and think of your questions. I mean, and let's get them pretty specific if we have more. But a lot might be answered by Susan.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the next step would be contacting Susan. Okay.
It would be Susan, and in the meantime, we will be formulating questions.
Okay, that sounds good.
And at least, and Liz is going to see if she can get any sense about the area around the Preston Grave, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I know about that, things like that, is that when we had the 6 Union soldiers that were buried together when we got there, and they were still, the skeletons were, the remains were in the ground because we saw them there. They were in a row, but they were very, very tight together. So you figure out how many, there was no spacing in between them. They were all. So if this in fact was during the battle or right after the battle, it could be that would affect.
Cool.
If it was actually a post-battle burial, they could be tight in there.
Yeah. From the story, it was a little hard to tell whether there's, clearly they unearthed the remains, but it's not clear whether they just left it in place and put the stone there, or if they reburied it in a more picturesque, because it's a lovely spot. It has a view. It's on the top of the hill.
It hadn't occurred to me that he might have been moved off. I questioned Mary as to whether he'd gone home to Lexington, because he has a stone in Lexington as well.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't have brought him there to Lexington.
But the stone in Lexington, I think, says that he's at Sudley.
Yeah, and that's what Blake, writes off in the
Interesting
nomination. But there are 2 stones.
Well, Stone's arm is in a different place than his body.
All the ancestry stuff thinks he's buried in Lexington.
Oh, interesting.
And they all think that Sudley's in Prince William.
Well, I sometimes think that, because all the roads in Prince William are called Sudley.
I know. Okay, do you guys have any ideas and dates, or is it just something we'll just see what's going to happen?
See what happens. I don't know.
Okay,
we're going to have our questions in 3 weeks. Then I was going to say, then you put forward your questions and then wait to hear back on them, I guess. So it's hard to predict.
I'm locked until December 8th, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
And it keeps going.
Does Denise have any, is this one of these developers who's breathing down your neck? Or are there any timing concerns for anything for this?
No, I mean, like I said, this property, it's been subdivided, so that part of it is done. So the lots themselves will be developed, but we won't see them. CPD will not see them unless they have a historic site on them.
This is worth doing.
And Liz will see them from a site plan perspective, but we won't see them.
Yeah.
And you'll only see them though, you or Liz will only see them if they're on the inventory. If they're not on the inventory,
No,
they just,
no, Liz will see that. Liz reviews all site plans. Liz's group reviews all site plans. We only review site plans if it's in a historic overlay district or if there's an inventory property associated with it.
And probably nobody in DPD would notice and call you.
The cemetery,
Yeah.
They would contact Liz.
Yeah.
Okay. They just go
Yeah,
to.
and I mean, I can let Denise know if we get contacted, but they would.
I don't know if this is the same developer, because when we walked out on the property, we had to get his permission, and we walked out with a representative. And he was like well aware of these and saying that he was going to, make sure that they didn't get, wiped off, and that he was going to preserve the Manassas, gap remnants as well. And but I don't know. That's what he said.
I did
Well, the
notice in
problem
this.
is-
Go ahead, Liz.
The problem is we can't guarantee what the person who buys the house, the lot will do.
Yeah.
There is an easement on the property for an ingress egress easement for the cemetery.
Oh, for the cemetery.
Is it on the Civil War register?
That I don't know.
Who's the keeper of that?
The Civil War inventory, I think. Well, it came out of Liz's group, but I don't know.
There's the Civil War sites inventory that we have.
Oh,
Yeah.
That is mainly archaeological sites, but would include cemeteries and stuff. I can see from John Rutherford if it's on the Civil War sites inventory.
Because it ought to be.
Well, when that was done, if things have been discovered since that time.
Yeah, John is good
Does
about getting
John
stuff
keep
out
up?
there. Yes, he does.
Okay, that's good.
These things have, Cheryl can correct me, but these things have been common knowledge in the community for a long time.
Okay.
That the graves are, that the Carter Tolliver Cemetery is there, and that the Civil War sites are there. That's correct, right, Cheryl?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch what you said.
The community has been aware of for a long time.
Yes, yeah. I mean, people have been aware of it. I don't know how widespread or well known it is, but yes, people certainly. When it went from when the golf course was sold with the proposal that it was going to be developed into houses, as I said, people started to, try to do something to see if it could potentially be, changed or altered, or get some sort of preservation protections in there. I think I know there's some parkland. There's parkland that's all along the river there, Fairfax County Parkland. I don't know if that also extends. It might also extend and cover the Manassas gap pieces, but it doesn't extend up to where the cemeteries are.
Okay, well, this all sounds like it's in John Rutherford's department.
Yeah, it is.
So did he, is there a public release version that's just describes it? And then
There is a public
there's
release
one
version, and it's actually online.
I know, I'm looking at it.
It's very vague.
So then you guys have the detail that you keep.
Correct. I mean, the reason it's not online is we're trying not to have it be X marks the spot for
Absolutely.
relevance.
It's very obvious why you do it, but I love, it's quite an elegant way of doing it. It's real, because it's a nice report that says nothing.
Yes, it does.
That's how we designed. Yeah, that goes back to when I was still at the Park Authority, and that's how we designed it.
It's really lovely. I mean, it's a nice history, and I mean, well, we've been looking at it for the purposes of this new inventory.
And the consultant from John Milner Associates that headed it was on the History Commission for a while.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, Balicki, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay.
And I think that this is the kind of thing he would have known about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would assume yes.
Yeah, that's going to be on there.
So we'll find
I'm
out
in
what's on.
I'm in touch with Joe, so if there's any
Oh, really?
questions for Joe, I can.
Oh, good.
Joe is actually retired now, but he's still
Really?
consulting.
So Liz, how long were you given to do that inventory? Just out of curiosity.
Contracted Denise.
That was
They
actually
contracted it?
complete by the time I was hired. When
Oh, I'm sorry.
when I started, very shortly after I started, I got boxes of the public release reports to distribute.
This started before, see, Liz came, like, I was able to interview Liz, although I had just retired like the month before. And so when she came, this was like a crisis out there. And I don't remember if it was, Liz may know, I don't know if it was the Star Fort out there or something out by Centerville, and something happened. And so there was a big hullabaloo, and I was called into the deputy director's office, Mike Kane, and said, you have to do this. And it was like, it was sort of like what we've just finished. You do it now. And so I had to call in, for archaeologists, we had to start, and we had to respond to the people on high, but we also had to follow the proper protocols for archaeology. And so this is how there would be a public version, and then there would be a staff version. So it was crazy. And then when Liz walked in, I think Liz, that was probably the first great big thing they dumped on you, right?
Yeah.
The contract was done.
Basically, that's how it was. It was not planned ahead. It was like, this is an emergency. This has happened. The citizens are upset. You do something.
But there was a consultant.
And
I don't think it was Starford, though.
And then
It was John Milner Associates. were the
But they hired a consultant.
then they hired a consultant, but they started.
Let me underline that.
No, they did. Yes, but the point is, when it happened, it's like, what are you going to do? Yes.
No, I know. You should just respond, but.
It was crazy. We had to have and in those.
So again, bravo, everybody.
There was not a Liz position. So you had the county archaeology with Mike Johnson, and you had the Park Authority archaeology with Richard Sacchi, and they really couldn't stand each other. And so we had all these people and Liz. So my parting gift was to write a position description for a Liz. It's through the system. And that's why I was invited back to interview her, because it was my last little thing I had done, so that we could have a way of merging these two groups.
Yes. Making people play well with others.
Tried hard. So that's, anyway, so yes, this is a really great thing we have. And it went through different iterations, but that's how it began.
Yeah, and it would be nice to be able to, someday when there's money again, it would be nice to be able to actually complete it.
Yes.
Because Joe found so much that there were parts of the county that were only really superficially worked on.
Sure, I'm sure.
And it would be nice to, to get a little bit of a nest egg and be able to do those areas more thoroughly.
Well, maybe you can, I shouldn't say this, but maybe when you're thinking about your request to the commission for what you want to do next year, Liz.
Mm-hmm. It's a thought.
Okay.
My only concern right now is because we have gotten the bond funding for the collections facility is to get us as up and
Right.
going forward as we
Right.
can.
Right. I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Priorities that are higher, so, yeah.
Okay, well, I think our meeting is officially over. Oh, and Ann's cat has come to visit.
Can't.
So hungry.
So what did we decide? Are we having a meeting in December or are we waiting until what are we doing? We're working on our questions for you.
We're waiting on our questions. I'll consolidate them, send them back to you. We'll see what happens with the questions and when a meeting is appropriate.
So
It really depends.
Susan, and when Susan can go out also, that's a factor. Okay.
Yeah, it depends. We have Susan and John to give us information. We'll ask our questions and see what we need to do from there.
and did you talk about giving us 3 weeks?
No, it's 3 weeks, but I'm a procrastinator, so it's
Okay.
not hard and fast.
So that's early December.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think if you sit down for an hour or so,
It's true. We could do it by tomorrow night.
yeah.
Sure.
It's fresh, right? It's fresh
Right.
in your mind. So you should.
Maybe some of us should, because
should.
otherwise we'll be lost.
Yeah.
Good point,
I'm
Denise.
putting in the assignment in red ink, so I'll remember.
Okay.
So I do know that Susan had asked for after Thanksgiving, so I'll just put that out there. She had indicated that after Thanksgiving her schedule cleared a little bit. So
That's only 2 weeks away.
well, and I contacted her. I think it was last week or the week before. So that was I think there might be something that she's working on that's maybe going to be finished after Thanksgiving. So
Okay.
Is there anything else?
Thank you very much for being so organized, Elise.
I'll say.
I try.
Absolutely.
Did a good job. Did a good job.
Okay. I will talk to all of you eventually. I have ARB on Thursday.
Hope it goes well. I hope you learn all kinds of good things about Wellington.
Yes. Well, the crazy guy from Langley who owns the Langley Ordinary is back without submitting adequate plans again.
Oh.
He's been trying to get something through since January. He got turned down in August because he didn't spit the right stuff. And now he wants a vote.
Okay. Well, that'll keep you awake for a few more
Yeah.
minutes.
That's true.
Well, and I was going to say, just to tell you guys, I found a really cool Civil War letter about Wellington. It was really fun. It was a neat thing. So William Snowden was, he lived in the area and then he joined the Union Army and then he was stationed at Fort Worth and he wrote these letters back to the newspaper back in New Jersey. And he wrote about, when he would go over during the war and visit Wellington and see that his library was still intact and all of this stuff.
Oh,
So
how interesting.
that was a cool find.
Yes.
So
Wonderful.
it looks like the same house that was there in 1890. I mean, it's sort of his writing is a confirmation that the house that he identified as Wellington in 1890 is the same house he was looking at in 1859.
Okay.
So
There you go.
I think it, maybe it makes it more possible that is the Tobias Lear original house. So I don't know. But again, an architectural historian would be helpful to go in and take a look at that.
Yeah.
You have to sneak in now.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.